Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes. So I'm delighted to be here today to talk also about SDG 6. There have been other speakers before me who also spoke about 6, which shows the centrality of this goal, right? You agree with me. So I will be talking about water, sanitation and hygiene, hence also about shit, as you say, about taps, about tampons, about sanitary pads, about feces, etc. So today I want to focus on an aspect of information that is not widely written about, nor spoken of, or not even understood and budgeted for, but which is very important and plays an important role for extending knowledge, for changing our countries, for changing our communities and our lives. And I'm thinking of breaking taboos and mentioning the unmentionable. I don't want to shock anyone, but A, without naming problems, we cannot find solutions, and B, if you feel shocked, it means that we really have a taboo which we have to break today. So, water and sanitation, as you know, are used for cultural and social purposes, and there are numerous practices and habits regarding their use. For example, hand washing. Hand washing after you use a toilet, hand washing before you eat is a practice and a good one. But then there are bad ones. The previous speaker refer, the next slide please, to open defecation as a bad practice. Or, next slide please, stigmatization of women and girls who are menstruating. These practices of stigmatizing people are culturally defined, and they have a negative impact on the dignity, well-being, human rights, and even health of people. So to change these practices, we need intelligent, but also context-specific, sensitive, culturally relevant engagement with individuals, with groups. We need information, and we need this information to be made widely available. The professionals working with water, sanitation and hygiene are used to talk about taboos, including all the issues I mentioned before. And there is even a tool developed by the sector which is called the shit flow diagram. I will talk about it a bit later on. But the professionals and the people working in this area, and I guess this is also what you were saying before, the professionals working in this area, they often face difficulties in making sure that the message comes across to politicians, to decision makers, even to the private sector, to those who take decisions and to those who fund development. So let me start addressing the taboos one by one. First, next slide. Menstrual hygiene behaviors and practices are culturally defined and very often stigmatized. I remember as UN rapporteur, when I was talking with girls and women, and even more so with men and boys, about menstruation, the first reaction was a nervous laughter and then uneasiness. The boys would disappear. I remember being in Kenya and talking with the girls about menstruation. When I pronounced the word menstruation, the girls laugh, the boys disappear. It has nothing to do with them. Of course it has something to do with them. So just to understand, so after these talks enabled me to understand that in some countries, girls can simply not afford sanitary pads. Do the politicians know that? I remember meeting a mother telling me, I either have the money to pay for the school bus for my daughter or to buy a sanitary pad. The girls stayed at home 5 days a month. Women don't go to work often 5 days a month for the exact same reasons. Do the politicians know that? There are parts of the world where girls or women are locked up for 5 days a month because they are seen as impure during the time they are menstruating. But even in my generation in Europe, there are stories of shame, of hushing up, of suffering pains without painkillers, or of fathers changing the way they interact with their girls, with their daughters, after they started menstruating. Recently, we have been seeing this topic become a bit more visible in the public, in the public, with the photo that I showed before, the marathon runner's free bleeding, the Chinese Olympic swimmer talking about her periods, deleted Instagram photos of period stains, President Obama talking about tampons, and also the discussion about the value-added tax that is charging, that is applied to tampons, labeling them as luxury products. Is it a luxury? But still more must be done, not only peer-to-peer, as we are seeing here, exchange of information, but also more information towards politicians. Another taboo is the one that keeps girls and women from accessing services they need, and also from participating in decision-making, from being part of those bodies where decisions are taken regarding water and sanitation. They are seen as less capable, less skilled, but what I've seen in practice have been beautiful wash clubs, for example, in Bangladesh, led by women, comitês de água potável, water committees in Latin America, led by women and working perfectly well. Well, some not so well, but women are not perfect. In certain parts of the world, and you were referring to that, caste still throws a long shadow and prevents Dalits from escaping the stigma and the health risks, next one, from manual scavenging. I will not enter, oh, this is still the period, next one please, sorry, of manual scavenging. And even as you said, it is banned in certain countries, it is still practiced. And the government still uses, the same government that has legally forbidden it, still uses their services in the area of sanitation. Good. It's not good, it's bad. So access to information and the description of this practice as unfair, as contrary to human rights, contrary to human dignity, will empower people and will encourage them not to feel ashamed, not to hide, but rather fight for their rights. And I remember talking with people in Bangladesh who are officially not called Dalits, but they are street sweepers. It's an euphemism, another euphemism. They felt, before they were engaging in with NGOs in this area, they felt that being a manual scavenger was their destiny, that they could not escape from that. So providing information, talking about this taboo is crucial to making sure that things change. Another taboo is around the Roma population. As you know, here in Europe we have gypsies, Roma population, and they are often seen as unclean, as dirty. In my own country, that's how people see them. I was on mission in Slovenia, and I remember talking with a father who told me, we are seen as not clean, and we are not clean, we all stink. And I noticed that the man was stinking, and he said, but this is because we are not connected to the water, to the city's water, and we don't have toilets. And he was telling me the story of his daughter, a 15-year-old girl, who came home crying, saying, the other guys in my class are teasing me and laughing at me because I stink. So I don't want to go to school any longer. And the girl stopped going to school. I asked the father, what did you do? And he said, I simply hugged her and cried because there was nothing I could do about the situation. And what is worse is, because the girl stopped going to school for the reason I just explained, they stopped receiving a public subsidy that they were entitled to as long as the kids went to school. And people are not talking about it and continue to look at the Roma as dirty and as a group that is really different from us and maybe not deserving these subsidies. The issue of sanitation is, again, also a huge taboo. Something people don't feel comfortable talking about. It stinks. It's not sexy as water. So the best way to deal with it is by ignoring it, right? Wrong. It's by getting rid of it, by hiding it under the carpet, right? Wrong. And why is it wrong? Because we know that this is one of the most off track of the Millennium Development Goals. Next slide. This is the sheet flow diagram I was mentioning to you. I will be very quick. It aims at showing and at putting in question this myth that having sewage is better than having a latrine. And the idea of the latrine, normally people think that sewage will make sure that the feces are disposed of, they are put far away, and somebody will deal with it. Yes, there might be cases, for example, here in Europe, where the feces are dealt with and the sewage treatment plants function and dispose of them safely. Very often, having waterborne sanitation is only a way of putting the shit under the carpet, or better said, of dumping the shit into a waterway, into the ocean, far away from people's sites. And the result in practice is the same as open defecation. It affects our health, it affects our environment. And this diagram has been a very powerful tool to show governments that the situation that they have and the investments that they are making very often in public sewage are not the most intelligent ones. It would be better, and also in the context of climate change and growing water scarcity, to invest in dry latrines. But then, again, information, it's also an issue of perception. I remember talking with an African prime minister, telling him, please give the example, use dry latrines. Yes, I have them, he said, in my house, for the workers, not for him. Good. So reaching goal 6 will require information flows on social and cultural context, going to donors and others who are planning. And very often the lack of information leads to wrong decisions. It was said before, the sheet flow diagrams shows it. I remember being in Kiribati. Kiribati is a small island state in the Pacific, and I remember there was a beautiful EU program that went there and just built toilets, which were not used, as was already said before. And they were not used because the people were not consulted. And for a very stupid reason, they didn't use it, because they were used to looking at the sky when they were defecating. So in a second round, the European Union understood that it was all about removing the roofs, and then people would use the toilets. This is what happened. So information, participation is crucial if we want to make this goal a reality, empower everyone, and eliminate inequalities. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.